Hello everyone and welcome to my channel YNR Trends. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Nikki's breath reeked of vodka as she staggered into the icy night, the frigid winter wind slapping her cheeks like a punishment she refused to acknowledge, her heels clicking unevenly across the empty Newman estate driveway, each step a shaky memory of the sobriety she had promised her family only hours before. The promise she broke the moment she twisted the cap off that glistening, poisonous bottle, calling her name from the bar cart in her suite. Tears blurred her view as she fumbled with the keys to her Bentley, the engine roaring to life, echoing across the quiet property like a dangerous secret whispered into the void. And with trembling hands gripping the wheel, she peeled away, unaware that fate was already setting a horrific chain of events into motion, her vision wavering through the darkness as guilt battled the alcohol in her veins. Guilt for the lies she told Victor, guilt for disappointing Victoria again, guilt for letting the cravings win. Yet none of those feelings stopped her foot from flooring the accelerator as she turned onto the rural road leading out of town, headlights glinting off patches of dirty snow on the shoulder. The storm clouds above seemed to press lower and lower, suffocating her with their weight as the road curved sharply. And that's when she saw it, two flickering taillights swaying slightly ahead, moving suspiciously slow. A vehicle she didn't recognize weaving unpredictably, as though whoever drove it was struggling to keep it on the road. And in the growing panic that consumed her, Nikki didn't notice she was drifting closer, the space between the vehicles narrowing until suddenly the car ahead jerked violently sideways, skidding across the slick pavement, spinning out of control directly into Nikki's path. And before she could react, the world exploded in screams of twisting metal and shattering glass, her body lurching forward as the Bentley slammed head-on into the smaller sedan, the deafening collision reverberating through her bones like a detonation. And then silence, unholy, suffocating silence broken only by the hissing radiator and Nikki's ragged gasps. Smoke curled into the night sky as she reached with trembling fingers for her seatbelt, the metallic tang of blood pooling in her mouth as she stumbled out into the freezing air, shards of glass glittering like ice on the asphalt. And that's when she heard it. A faint whimper from the other car, a fragile voice pleading through the crumpled metal, the voice of Sienna, the ambitious young designer Summer recently hired for Marchetti, the rising star who had just arrived in Genoa City and posed a threat to more than one established player in town, lying broken in the wreckage because of Nikki's relapse. And panic seared Nikki's veins like molten iron as she staggered to the driver's side door, tugging desperately as the twisted frame refused to budge. Every second stretched like a lifetime as guilt slammed into her, worse than any alcohol could numb. And then out of the darkness a figure appeared, a man tall and composed, his coat flapping ominously in the violent gusts, no headlights announcing his arrival, no engine humming, just sudden silent presence, as if conjured from the night itself. And Nikki froze, eyes wide with disbelief as the stranger stepped into the beam of her broken headlight, revealing a face too familiar, one that had haunted the Newman family decades before, a name spoken only in whispers. Matt, the man long presumed dead, the man tied to Newman's secrets buried deeper than Victor ever admitted. His expression unreadable, cold, almost calculating as he surveyed the wreckage, his eyes lingering on Sienna's bloodied silhouette before fixing on Nikki with disturbing calm. And in that moment Nikki felt the alcohol in her bloodstream turn to ice, because Matt should not be here, could not be here, yet his presence was undeniable. His voice dripping venom and eerie nostalgia as he stepped closer and murmured, "So history repeats itself, doesn't it, Nicole?" Every syllable slicing deeper into her panic. She opened her mouth but no words emerged, just sobs choked by terror. And Matt reached casually into his coat as though retrieving something important, something premeditated, while Nikki's trembling hands fumbled for her phone, scrolling through contacts blurred by tears, desperate to call Victor, to confess before someone else twisted the truth. But the screen slipped from her grip and shattered on the asphalt just as sirens echoed faintly in the distance, growing louder, closer, threatening to expose everything. Matt paused, turning his head toward the sound, eyes narrowing with irritation, before leaning into the wrecked car, fingers brushing Sienna's pale cheek with eerie tenderness as if assessing whether she could survive long enough to reveal what she saw. And Nikki screamed for him to stop, but he only smirked, whispering to Sienna, "You poor thing. Wrong place, wrong night," before stepping back into the shadows without another word, slipping away so silently Nikki questioned whether he was ever there at all. Yet the lingering chill in the air assured her he was flesh and blood, not a drunken hallucination. Paramedics arrived seconds later, rushing to Sienna's side as Nikki stumbled back, clutching her arms around herself, trying to steady her breathing. But every question thrown her way blurred in the haze of alcohol, guilt, and trauma. And when the police arrived, flashing lights illuminating the tragedy, Nikki realized with horror that her world, her family's legacy, and her sobriety were about to implode because she wasn't alone when that crash happened. Someone saw, someone who shouldn't exist, someone who could tear down the Newmans with a single whispered truth. As she stared into the distant tree line where Matt vanished, her stomach twisted in dread at what his mysterious return meant and whether Sienna, fighting for life under paramedic hands, had recognized him too, whether she would survive long enough to tell anyone what she saw, and whether Matt planned for all of this, using Nikki's relapse, the crash, and Sienna's fragile condition as the first act in a revenge years in the making, a chilling omen that even death could not silence Newman enemies. And as the ambulance sped away and police approached Nikki with solemn suspicion in their eyes, she realized one horrifying truth. This wasn't an accident. This was a message, and the nightmare had only begun. The cold blue lights flickered against the broken guardrail as Nikki stood still, a shaking figure lost in guilt and keeping secrets. Around her, officers rushed about, their radios sending out quick messages and sharp orders. As Detective Chance Chancellor walked closer, his face looked like stone. Nikki's heart pounded like war drums in her ears. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to hide the shaking in her hands, hoping the smell of vodka on her breath wouldn't give her away before she could think of a lie strong enough to stop suspicion. But Chance was always good at finding the smallest mistakes in a story, and tonight, under the eerie glow of the emergency lights, he looked especially strict. He fixed her with a serious look and asked her to tell what happened. Nikki's mind went wild, replaying moments. Matt stepping out of the dark, Sienna's shallow breaths, glass falling like shiny knives onto the road. But admitting Matt was there would bring up questions she couldn't answer. How he survived, why he came back, and how he knew exactly when to show up at a crash that no one should have expected unless it was planned. She swallowed hard, fighting the sickness rising in her throat, and whispered about losing control of the car and trying to help the other driver. But Chance's face stayed hard, his eyes showing doubt, especially when Nikki hesitated on certain details, stumbling over the timeline like someone scrambling through a collapsing building. In the distance, Victor's black SUV came to a screeching stop. The Newman father stormed out, his anger shaking the cold air, his eyes full of fear and rage as he demanded answers from anyone nearby. But when he reached Nikki, his anger turned to sadness. His jaw tightened as he saw the blood on her cheek, the glass pieces in her coat, and the fear beneath her skin. He pulled her into his arms, shielding her from the curious glances and quiet judgment of the first responders, shouting for people to step back. But even he couldn't hide the truth. The smell of alcohol on her breath showed her secret before she spoke a word, and Victor's face dropped, the disappointment in his eyes hurting more than any accusation Chance could make. Nikki cried, her face buried in Victor's shoulder, but the words about seeing Matt stuck in her throat. How could she explain the impossible return of a man thought dead without sounding crazy? Meanwhile, at the crash site, an officer named Chance was called over. He showed security camera footage from a nearby gas station. The footage happened a few minutes before the crash. Chance frowned as he watched the low-quality video on a tablet. His face got darker when he saw a shadowy figure stepping out of the woods just before Nikki's car drove by. There was no car dropping him off, no clear path leading to him, just him appearing suddenly and staying near the road like he was waiting. The screen flickered when the figure turned toward the camera, showing a partly hidden face that looked a lot like the man Nikki had seen earlier. Chance played the video 3 times, trying to figure out if it was just a coincidence. The officers looked uneasy, but Victor demanded to know what they found. His voice was deep and angry, making everyone quiet. Chance didn't answer right away. Instead, he went to Nikki with a calm but careful attitude. He handed her the tablet. Nikki stepped back instinctively, knowing what she was about to see. Her heart pounded as the video played again. Each frame confirmed the horrible truth: Matt was alive and he was watching. Victor's face turned pale. His mind raced through all the secrets the Newman family had hidden about Matt. All the lies they made years ago to get rid of the threat he posed. Now those secrets came back violently, fueled by Nikki's relapse and the tragic crash. As police were about to take Nikki to the station for more questions, Victor stopped them. He promised lawyers and revenge if anyone tried to treat his wife like a criminal. But behind his tough attitude was a deep fear. Matt's return meant revenge that was planned carefully, using their weaknesses against them. At the hospital, Sienna was fighting for her life. Doctors rushed around under bright, flickering lights. Summer and Kyle stood anxiously outside the operating room, not knowing the crash was anything but random. They didn't know Matt had already started working his way back into their lives, pulling invisible strings of control. Across town, in a dark motel room lit by an old TV, Matt sat at a small table. He was scrolling through secret messages on a burner phone. A sneering smile played on his lips as he read the latest message confirming Sienna's critical condition. He tapped his fingers on the table, counting down the time until the next part of his plan. He stopped when a new message appeared. Phase 1 complete. Proceed when ready, Matt replied without hesitation, typing just one word, soon, before deleting the conversation completely. At the same time, Nikki and Victor arrived at the police station. Their entrance sparked quiet conversations among the officers, who couldn't believe they were seeing the Newman matriarch in handcuffs for driving under the influence and causing a crash. But no one yet understood that the crash wasn't just about Nikki's relapse. It was the first move in a war Matt had been planning for years. In this war, every weakness of the Newman family would be exposed, every secret used, and every loved one targeted. As Nikki sat in the interrogation room, surrounded by bright, harsh lights, she silently promised to keep Matt's return a secret. She thought that if she admitted he was back, it would bring more suffering. But she didn't know that hiding the truth would only make Matt more determined, pushing Genoa City toward a storm even worse than any tragedy the Newmans had ever faced. The interrogation room's walls felt like they were getting closer, squeezing Nikki until she felt like she was disappearing. Chance walked back and forth, asking serious questions she couldn't answer without giving away the nightmare piece by piece. Victor watched from behind the glass, hands clenched, thinking about what to do next. He knew the Newmans couldn't risk another scandal, especially one filled with blood and old secrets tied to a man they thought was dead. Nikki's voice shook as she said the crash was an accident, her cheeks wet with tears. But every broken word showed how scared she was, and Chance thought that fear meant she was guilty. As he leaned in, asking about the bad driving, her silence said more than any confession ever could. Then Victor rushed in, shouting for the questioning to stop. His voice was both strong and desperate, but Chance stayed firm, explaining that the rules needed answers, especially since Sienna was in bad shape and the forensics team had already checked Nikki's car for signs of being drunk. Rumors said her blood alcohol level was high enough to get her in trouble unless something else happened. Something Victor hoped Nikki wouldn't tell. Far away, Sienna's heart monitor was going crazy, and doctors were trying to keep her stable. Summer was running around, Kyle was trying to calm her. But they didn't know Sienna had just opened her eyes a little. Her eyes blinked weakly, and flashes of the night came back to her. The bright lights, Nikki shouting, and the scary figure that appeared from the smoke. She wanted to speak, to warn them, but her throat hurt and her body was shaking. Nurses rushed to give her more medicine to stop her from speaking the name that would cause a big fight in Genoa City. Meanwhile, Matt watched from the shadows hidden under a hood, smiling as paramedics took another injured person from a crash he had planned to distract the police. His plan was going perfectly while the Newmans argued about how to fix the mess, not knowing the bigger danger was right behind them. At the station, Victor told Nikki in a hurried voice, "Don't say anything about Matt." His tone was full of fear and control, reminding her of their old deal when they buried Matt's bad actions and made him look dead to protect their business. That decision was now causing problems because Matt had come back for revenge, and he had information that could expose every Newman secret. Nikki's relapse gave him the perfect chance. When Victor told Chance to let Nikki go so she could speak with a lawyer, the evidence text brought bad news. The other car, Sienna's, had been forced out of its lane on purpose before Nikki hit it. That meant the crash wasn't all because of Nikki's drinking. Chance's face got serious as he realized the blame might be on someone else. And Nikki felt a little hope before the hope turned to despair again, as she realized this might lead to Matt's involvement no matter what. Suddenly, the lights in the station flickered and went out, then came back on. Chance got a call. The traffic cameras around the crash had been wiped in the last hour, taking away any video proof. Victor turned white, knowing it was Matt's usual move, digital sabotage like he did before when they tried to expose him. Nikki held Victor's arm, whispering that they were being watched, chased. Alarms went off as the officers tried to find the breach, but Matt was already gone, disappearing like a ghost pulling strings from the dark. He had only started phase 2 of a revenge plan that had been brewing for years, built on Newman lies, driven by betrayal, and made worse by Nikki's relapse. This was like a bullet going straight through the heart of Genoa City, and now that the past had come back, there was no stopping the bloodshed.